All right, welcome back. So we've got all of these values now. We've got a completed table with the mean or the median or the range or the variance or the standard deviation, right? The range is just max minus min, which is pretty straightforward for these guys because there's only two guys. The variance is a little harder to calculate. You might remember that from some of the worksheets we did earlier in the semester. To do variance, you would take, first of all, the mean and you would subtract it from each value. Then you would square that difference, add up all of those squares, and divide by 1 minus the number of data points in the sample. And that's how you calculate variance. And then you take the square root of that to get the standard deviation. Of course, we also have Excel and other tools to calculate a lot of those. So if you don't remember exactly how to do that, that is in your notes. That is something you've done before. So hopefully you will, if you're not sure how to do it on the top of your head, take the time to remind yourself and refamiliarize yourself with that process. But once we have this completed table, let's start getting the means of these sample statistics. So, right, I've got all these samples, and I've got the means for each sample. I've got the medians for each sample. I've got the ranges for each sample. So I am now going to take all of these means and find the mean of those means. I'm going to take all the medians, get the mean of those medians. I'm going to take all the ranges, same thing. Going to get the mean of the sample variances. I'm going to get the mean of the sample standard deviation. So I'm going to take all these columns essentially and add them up and divide by the number of samples. But just like before, it is again going to be a weighted mean. And that is because, right, this sample occurs twice as often. The 3, 11 happens twice as often. So when we're doing the sample mean, we're essentially going to be multiplying each mean by its occurrence. If it occurs once or twice, we'll multiply by 1 or 2. And then we'll divide by 9 because there's 9 total outcomes that we're accounting for. And when we do that, we get 7.333. So let me show that real quick. Production values, putting my calculator in front of the clip art here. So I've got 3 plus 5.5, 5.5, 7 and 7, 8, 9.5, 9.5, and 11, all divided by 9 to get 7.33, etc., and so forth. And that is our sample mean. Well, I'm sorry, that's the mean of the sample means. There we go. And here's something I want you to notice. What's just the mean of 3, 8, and 11? Huh. It's also 7.333. How about that? In fact, what we'll get if we do this all the way through is we'll get the sample means to line up exactly. The medians, the range, the variance, though, that lines up exactly as well. The sample standard deviations lines up exactly as well. And if we had proportions like we did earlier, but again, the proportion of people who have bunnies is 100%. So sample proportions don't mean anything right here. But if we had sample proportions, that would line up exactly as well. So what I want you to see here is if you do a mean of sample means, your mean of means will equal the population mean. If you do the mean of variances, that will line up exactly as well. And of course, the square root of that will line up exactly as well. And then finally, if we had proportions instead of this stuff, that would line up exactly also. Anything else, however, not so much. And we'll see more of that here in a second. But some of you might be screaming at your computer, Mr. Terrell, this is all theoretical. What if I had actual real data? What if I had a lot of real samples? All right, well, let's see how this goes. Suppose instead of doing 9 samples like we've done here, let's do a lot of samples. And let's make them truly random, right? With this table stuff, I did every sample exactly once. Reality is not going to work like that. So let's do random samples instead, and we'll see how it lines up. So in the next video, I will show you my results, and we'll probably wrap up the unit there. So I'll see you then.